Yes, quite a few. The opening statement was interesting in terms of a clear indication that there was going to be no defense of those involved in state capture itself without mentioning names. And it was phrased in a way where they were almost thrown under the bus. So that was probably the key statement for me in terms of that opening statement. Much detail in the latter discussion, which has focused around cadre development. But again, much depends on the detail of execution rather than the statement of principle. And we wait to see if the detail is going to come in the later testimony, because that's exactly where the devil is.
Now, the President talked about merit. He talked about fairness. Do you get the impression that the Deployment Committee really took that into account, and certainly in some of the deployments that they made? Or was it more about the agendas of the ANC?
Well, I notice firstly the focus on high-level public service appointments, DG level in particular, and maybe Deputy Director General level as well. And in that sense, the President may have a point, but he's not going into the detail of provinces, and he's certainly not mentioning municipalities. And there you've got political processes influencing appointments in the public service at provincial and local level, where there may not be fairness, and in many cases there isn't merit. And by keeping it high level at national government level, I think there's avoiding some of the real issues that require discussion.
Do you think that the chalice is already poisoned? Because he says what we do is political, hence the need to have oversight on appointments.
Well, I wonder about that, because you've got a Public Service Act and you've got other legislation which sets in motion a process to appoint officials. The Constitution is important here as well. And there you set out your processes in Parliament with portfolio committees, provincial committees, local government committees to perform that oversight function. I don't understand what political oversight means in that context. It's vague. It could be political interference. There are just too many ifs, whats, and maybes.
Now, one of the things that were certainly asked by the evidence leader is the composition of the Deployment Committee. And the President explained that you had individuals from Labour, community leaders, women, youth, many knowledgeable individuals, suggesting that it was a fair process.
Well, if it's to make recommendations, if it's to invite or encourage people to apply for advertised positions, well, then that may be the case. But Judge Zondo asked exactly the right question. And the question was, if people arrive in a selection process with the thumbs up from the selection committee, doesn't that give them an added advantage? And that's exactly the point in terms of how appointments are made. You do have a special selection process set within the rules of how things work. But candidates come in with flags, and those flags can impact unfairly on the process. And I don't think the question that Judge Zondo asked was properly answered.
Now, let me take you back to something that we talked about right at the beginning. And you indicated that the President had literally dragged or thrown some individuals under the bus. He was forthright in his opening remarks when he spoke out against corruption. He's also talked about the ANC and the need for reinvention or reinvigoration as far as some of the things that they stand for. Can we expect a change going forward, certainly, in how they deal with some of these individuals that are perceived to be corrupt or bringing the name of the party into disrepute?
Well, I think that the NEC process that has been set out in terms of those charged ought to stand down, and we wait to see whether they will be forced to stand down if they don't do so voluntarily. I think that's going to be the main mechanism for dealing with individuals who are involved in malfeasance and corruption. And quite frankly, that's just not enough. There are a whole range of other processes that need to take their course to supplement that in terms of getting people who have poor track records out of the public service sooner rather than later.
Professor,
and by public service, I mean elected and appointed officials.
Professor Ivor Sarakinsky, Wits School of Governance, so thank you for speaking to us this afternoon.